Hey everyone, we're live.
Yay.
Welcome to session 2 of the Design Cuts live conference. Thank you again for joining us. This should be a really, really fun session. And I am thrilled to welcome the lovely, the talented Melinda Livsey.
Thank you for
Welcome to the
having me. So
show.
excited for being here.
Honestly, I couldn't think of a better person to be here for session number 2. I think people should get a ton of value from this. Just to give you context on what Melinda's doing right now, she is a brand identity designer turned brand strategist, which we're going to get into in today's session 100%. She's also the mind behind Marks and Maker, which is a fantastic operation. So, Melinda, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be talking about this today.
What are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about improving your portfolio so you can attract higher end clients. So I can just jump into it if we don't have anything else we wanted to cover.
I think let's get right into it. Although, Can I see a little show of hands, maybe emoji me in the comments, if this is something that you feel is going to be really useful for your career? Let us know in the comments, because personally, this is one of the most important things that creators can focus on. I think, it really does unlock quite a lot. And I'm sure you've discovered this yourself, Melinda, in the process.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I'll be showing that too.
Yeah, like I experienced the same thing 100%. It's like, it's kind of like putting water into a leaky bucket if you don't get this step right, and it just goes all over the floor. So we're going to show people how to optimize that portfolio site.
Yeah. So I'll hop into it right now. So the fun part about this is I get to show you where I was at. So let me know if you see my screen okay. I'm going to be going back and forth between a keynote and my sites. So are we good here?
Yeah, we're absolutely perfect. And don't worry, I know you probably can't see the comments, but I'll let you know what people are saying. We're still getting a load of hands from people being like, hell yes.
Awesome. Yeah, and I can't see you either. So so just let me know if anything happens on your end. So I wanted to talk about improving your design portfolio to land better clients. And I want to show you this through the lens of my own portfolios, one that I used straight out of college in 2008 all the way to 2015. And of course, it was updated and changed and tweaked throughout that time. But you'll see that on the left. And I'm going to actually show you the page because it's still up. I never took it down. And then I'm going to show you what I have starting in 2016 to present. And I'm going to break down 5 points for you as the viewer of what you can do to up your portfolio to start landing better clients. So I'm going to use mine as an example. And then show you and walk you through some steps of what you can also do. So I just wanted to go through some points really quick of just my old portfolio that you saw on the left to the current portfolio and the difference between the two. The old one, I was attracting really low paying clients. It landed me generic design projects and not things that I really, really wanted to do. I was attracting things like marketing collateral, some social media things, a poster here and there. But what I really wanted to do was branding. I really wanted to do brand identity. So my old portfolio just wasn't landing me that. It was good to send maybe with a resume if I was looking for a full-time job, but it really wasn't good for me to land clients, especially. My site did not convert. And when I say that, I mean that all it was doing was showcasing my work, but it wasn't driving anyone to take an action, like calling me for a project or to inquire about anything. It really was just, hey, here's my work. Oh, and by the way, here's my email. And it didn't challenge anyone to take further action. It also didn't position me as an expert at all because my portfolio was all over the place. And so that you didn't even know what to think of me besides just a graphic designer. And really that old portfolio, when I think about it, it was all about me. It was all about my work. And I wasn't thinking about the viewer or the person who was reading through my site or looking at it. So I really wasn't designing my website at all or my portfolio for the person who was viewing it. My current portfolio. So it's always a work in progress. Your portfolio will always be a work in progress. But I made a big shift back in 2016 with this new site and the new branding of Marks and Maker. And I started to attract higher end clients because of it. It helped me land the actual work that I wanted. I had mentioned I wanted more brand identity and branding, and it's definitely done that for me. It also leads clients to contact me. And so I'm keeping that in mind as I'm trying to funnel people to actually inquire about their project. it positions me as an expert. So like I said, I wanted to land brand identity clients. And because I show that now, that positions me as a brand identity designer. And it also talks to the viewer. So whoever comes to the site, I'm thinking about the viewer now when I design and when I put messaging on my site, that I'm actually talking to another human being on my portfolio. And it's not just a place to lay out all of my beautiful pieces of work, but it's a place to talk to my potential client. Because in my case, I attract clients and I'm not going for any full-time job, but I believe the same goes even if you're trying to apply for a full-time position. You still want to talk to the person that's viewing your website. And so 100%. I'm going to go over, right? Yeah. And it's something I never thought of until I actually started another side business. And I realized how much we have to talk to the people that are viewing our sites. And then I translated that knowledge into my own portfolio, and that completely changed things for me.
I love that. Just for a second, Melinda. So everyone watching, you should see me like very tiny in the corner of this live stream because we're focused on Melinda's screen. You see what I'm holding up here? A notepad. If you have a notepad or a bit of paper, please get it out because this is going to be invaluable. I'm taking notes myself. I highly recommend everyone does because this is going to be a very actionable session. I can already tell. Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of actions, these are my top 5 tips, and I'm going to go in depth with each of them, and then I'm going to show you it on my sites. So the first one, like I had mentioned, talk to the viewer. So you're going to have messaging on there that actually speaks to the person that is viewing your website. So we'll get into the particulars of that. The next one's going to be giving context. So you're going to show your work within a certain type of context. You want to show your process. You want to curate what you show in your portfolio. And you also want to include self-initiated projects. This thing comes up a lot. People ask me about showing self-initiated projects. So I definitely wanted to talk about that. So we'll dive into this first one, and then I'm going to switch over to my sites. So talk to the viewer. You got to ask yourself some questions. What the person that's coming to your site, let's say they're a creative director, they're an art director, or they're a potential client, whoever you want to hire you, think about them. Put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, what do they want? What are they looking for in a designer, in whatever it is that you do as a creative? Why should they care to hire you above anyone else? And also you want to tell them what they do. I realized that in my previous site, I'll show you this. This is my old site. This is one that I started right out of school, like I had mentioned. As you see, there's zero messaging. I don't talk to the viewer. I just put my work on here and expect that whoever's going to come here is going to know even what to do. If I was a new viewer looking at this now, I thought, I might not even know to click on any of these thumbnails to see more. I don't even know what this is. Is this just like pretty pictures that this person pulled from online? Is it a mood board? I don't know what it is. And so
Melinda, I've seen thousands of websites like this. Like, no offense, but I feel like this is the archetypal portfolio when people are starting out, right? It's that gallery that they just put up.
It's just a gallery. It's a gallery that you don't even know what. It's so mysterious. Like, we don't even know what's behind
not in a
these
good way.
thumbnails. And not in a good way. Exactly. And then if you want to see about me, then I have just this little blurb with an email. Like, I look at this now, I think, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? I wasn't, obviously. I just wanted to put up my work and wanted people to hire me. And again, it was all about me. And if we switch over to this this is my work page, you'll see that I actually talk to the people that come to my page. And I've changed this messaging out a few times. I've updated it. I've put calls to action. So this is a constant work in progress and alive. I would say it's like a live living organism. But I still talk to someone who comes here, and I say what we do. I say what I touch upon what they want and what they're looking for, because they don't know how to tell their story. And with branding, we help people tell their story. And also we find those golden nuggets in their brand that we can bring alive. And so we're talking to them. And then as you go down here, even that simple thing of click on the image, because I've had some people not even go into the projects because they didn't know that they should click on it. And it, to us as designers or even UX designers, we think, well, that should be intuitive, but it's not. Sadly, it's not. Mm-hmm. And so this is the difference between where I was with absolutely no messaging. I'm not talking to my viewer, and then where I am now. So you'll see even a call to action at the end. Sometimes I do have calls to action in the end of my case studies, and we'll get into the actual case studies soon. So that's the first one, talk to the viewer. So you want to put some type of messaging on the site. You want to tell them what you do. A lot of times I'll go to websites of designers and I don't even know, are they a designer? Are they an illustrator? I see a mix of both, but there's some photography. So you want to tell people what you do, but you also want to consider, why are they even at your site? What do they want? And talk to them in a way that they will connect to. The second one is give context. Use mock-ups. Go to Design Cuts and get all the mock-ups that you can. So use mock-ups, and I'll show you some of those in my portfolio. Incorporate photography. So if you are designing packaging, even if you're designing apps or websites or anything, incorporate photography to communicate the story. And that's the next one, tell a story. So you want to you want to bring someone through this beautiful story of the piece, the project that you designed. And you also want to design your portfolio piece as a project in and of itself. So it's really funny it's even interesting for me to go back and look at this. So I want to show you a branding project. This was before. So this project is still in my portfolio, but the difference is the presentation. So here you'll see a logo, but how would you even know it's a logo unless you read it? And then this is a lookbook, but then there's zero context. I don't tell you where this lookbook is. I don't show it in a mock-up. I don't even remember where they used it. I think it was on their website. But you'll see I just put the work up. It's in zero context at all. So I have these two lookbooks.
Again, it feels almost like a mood board, which I think it can appeal to designers because they look at it and they're like, oh, that's pretty. Mm-hmm. But for clients, it's very confusing.
Very, very confusing. And so what I had mentioned too is when I switched to wanting to do brand identity, that's all I'm showing now. So this is the updated project, and it's using mock-ups, and it's also thinking, so this one was more about just the campaigns. These were different lookbooks for the campaigns, but I thought, well, if I wanted to do an overall brand identity show and case study of this particular brand, what would it look like? And so I went back and I looked at the branding that we did, and I told a story now. So if you look through this, I'm showing the product shots that they use on their site. I'm telling the story of the brand here. I'm showing the different product or the lifestyle shots, different versions of the logo. Again, the product shots, incorporating their story, incorporating the pattern that we use, some mock-ups for cards, some stationery. Again, weaving their story to talk about who they are and it's showing the logo and the identity and their story all within context of what does this whole brand feel like? And that's the other thing. You want your pieces to be designed, like I had said, just like it would be a project that you would design otherwise. So this is, this brand identity was done. Now I had to sit down and really think of the story and think of the flow of this piece as I laid it out in my portfolio. So you'll see this is completely different than this. This gives you absolutely no context. This doesn't tell a story. This does not make me feel anything. But when you look at this, you can get a full and entire sense of the brand.
And not only that, but it feels inherently more valuable and more comprehensive. It feels like you've done more work, like you've done more valuable work. And Melinda, I think I might have just conceived of the perfect social media analogy for this. So I think the early site is like Pinterest and the later site is like Behance.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Behance is like a long case study with loads of context and like a custom designed beautiful page. And Pinterest is more of that random mood board.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect analogy. That's perfect. Yes. So, and also when you're designing, I'm glad you brought up Behance, because when I was designing these case studies, I would look at other agencies or studios or any designer that was doing things really, really well. And I would study them and I would say, okay, what are they doing differently than me? How are they telling their stories? Why is their stuff so incredibly beautiful? Why do I love it so much? And I started noticing they incorporated things like GIFs. They designed the the transitions with patterns. They told the story of their case study. And I photographed some of these mock-ups too. And so I noticed that some of their mock-ups, they even use the color from the brand identity in their mock-ups. They didn't just use the straight up mock-up that was given to them. They changed out the colors and they, again, made it this whole entire piece. So I studied a lot of designers and studios that were doing it really, really well, and then tried to mimic that quality that they had and the photography that they incorporated. And so I highly suggest you get on Behance and you follow people that you admire so much, and then try and see what you can do to up your own portfolio. This is the other thing I wanted to mention too, and this is going to come up in the next thing. Actually, I'll wait to show you that. So to give context, use mockups, incorporate photography, tell a story, and then design your portfolio pieces as a project in and of itself. Show your process. So I'll get back to that page I was just at, but showing your process, you can do that in your pieces through showing sketches. Sometimes I'll show sketches of logo ideas or the concept, breakdowns of your concept, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then stylescape. So this would be either, you can call it a stylescape, a brandscape, but this is it's kind of like a mood board, but a higher level mood board because it's actually showing pieces of the brand. So this I will include in some of my pieces to show the thinking behind how the brand identity became what it is, and calling out each piece of it. And that's something, of course, I didn't do in the last one. And then I'll show you this other one. So when I say a breakdown of the concept, there's one in here where we had, so this would be an example. So I was coming up with a pattern for this chiropractor, and I took it from the curves of the spine. And so then I just broke down, hey, this is how I got to the pattern. And I see a lot of people on Behance do this too with logos. And I found that so intriguing because I love to see the thinking behind a concept. And this thing too is taken off on social media too. People love to see thinking behind something. So if you're able to do this with your anything of what you design, to show your thinking, but also design it in a beautiful way that still looks good. If you look through this, it still looks good in the whole entire case study. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're not just slapping in sketches that are really ugly and not well photographed, but you're actually designing and thinking about that.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was thinking of like a tatty old notebook or something. This is really nice, beautifully laid out process.
Thank you. Yeah. And so you can take photos of your sketchbook, just do it in a beautiful way. Get a friend. If you aren't into photography, get a friend to shoot it for you. You can still present it in a really nice way throughout. I don't think I have any sketches in here, but sometimes I'll show those.
And I guess perhaps showing it from the perspective of the client as well. So this process was actually something that involved them. And when you're giving an insight into that discovery phase, that not just shows off your talent, but it shows kind of how their experience will be working with you as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And people love to see the thinking behind anything. I've noticed that with a lot of clients. When they see that and they see a breakdown of my thinking, they go, oh my gosh, you came up with that? I've gotten that said to me so many times. Like, you thought about that? I didn't even, how did you come up with that? So it's really cool to be able to show that and then have people get excited about it too. Curating what you show. So show the type of work you want to get hired for. That we'll compare that really quick. So all of this is, I have some campaign stuff like the survival kits, more packaging, but it still falls under branding. But if you see here, if we look back at my old work, I have packaging. It's like a concept project that's packaging. I have packaging. I have brand identity. I have postcards and kind of branding that I did. I don't even know.
As a client, I would look at this and be like, she seems to do all kinds of stuff. Like, I wonder if she's going to be right for me.
I had lettering. I had this that actually went on a t-shirt, but then I didn't show that it was on a t-shirt. So it's just so all over the place. But then if you go here, it's very clear that I'm working on brands, and it's very clear that I'm working on brand identity and packaging and everything that goes in with that, because most everything that you see here our brands. And when you click into it, you can actually read more about the brand. And so I'm very intentional now about what I curate and what I show, because that's what I want to get hired for.
Well, and it feels more visually consistent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not jumping, it's nicer to look at. It's not bouncing around all over the place.
Yes. Thank you. And then what do you,
Can we just, can we repeat that top point just for a second? Show the type of work you want to get hired to do. Yes. I don't know, like maybe let us know in the comments, guys, how many of you have heard that? Or how many of you are actually doing it? Because it really is some of the best advice for every single designer out there. And it's so easy just to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then we don't fully do it. Like it truly can be a game changer in your career, because it's going to stop the randomness of clients that are coming to you, and they're going to be a lot more intentional. You're really going to attract the people that you actually want to be attracting. So if that's in your notebooks, highlight it basically.
Yeah. And I want to tell a quick story too. When I was coming out of, when I was graduating college and I went to a portfolio review, I had some illustration work in my portfolio because I also studied illustration, but I really didn't like it. And I didn't want to do it, but I figured, oh, well, I got to show that I can also do this because I'll be more desirable to hire. And so I got hired right out of school, and my boss later on, he gave me a project and he goes, oh, this would be perfect for you because you're an illustrator. And I thought, oh no, I don't want to do that. And I thought to myself, I should not have shown the work that I didn't want to get hired for. And I tell that to people always, if you don't want to get hired for something, take it out of your portfolio. Do not leave it in your portfolio. And because that's what's going to happen. Inevitably, someone's going to hire you for the thing you didn't want to do. And then they're going to request it of you, just like they did me. And I thought, oh no, why did I do this? I did it because I wanted to get hired, but I didn't think, oh, I'm actually going to have to do it later. So take it out. And take out I didn't put it on here, but you're only as good as your worst piece. So if you have something that's not that good, take it out right now. Just take it out and delete it.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I talk about this all the time. I like to think either it's your worst piece or it's the average of all your pieces. Yeah. So if you have 20 pieces and then you boil it down to 5 and it's your 5 best out of the 20, the average level of quality will be significantly higher. Yes. There's literally no harm to stripping out the bottom 50%, 80%, whatever it might be.
But yeah, there's not. And if anything, it's going to raise the value of everything else, because then you can actually put way more time and energy into crafting those pieces to look very high end.
Quality over quantity. I love it.
Exactly. And then what do you want to get known for? This kind of goes for the top one too. Like I didn't want to be known for illustration. I shouldn't have put illustration in my portfolio when I first graduated. So I wanted to be known again for branding. That's what I have in my portfolio. Do the same for you. So then that goes into the third one, specialize once you have enough years of experience. So you might not know, some people know right out of the gate what they want to do, what they want to get hired for. It's okay. It was even okay for me to start like this. It's okay to start there. Don't stay there as long as I did. But I didn't know. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I was into. But doing all of these things and getting hired for work I didn't like actually helped me decide what I really wanted to do. And it was branding. And then I was able to specialize. But just know that the quicker that you can specialize and show the work that you want to get hired for, you're going to get hired for it. And sometimes that's a scary thing to make that decision too soon. So you'll know when you're ready to do that. I would just say you can take all of these points and up your portfolio right now, no matter what stage you are at. The specializing, you'll know when the right time is to do that. And
like so much of what you've said, it is a continuous iterative process. This is not like go from having it completely wrong to completely right. You're always shifting it in the right direction. And I think it's worth shouting out on Thursday. I think actually he's our final speaker, but our mutual friend, Mr. Christo, is talking specifically about specialization, being a specialist versus being a generalist. So if you want to learn more about that, be sure to tune back in on Thursday. Oh, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. And then the fifth one, include self-initiated projects. I get asked this question so much because I actually include a lot of self-initiated projects, and people say, well, you weren't really paid for that, so it's not real. It's not a real project. And what if someone asks me and then I have to tell them that it was just a concept project? And it's okay. You still did the work. And all it is showing
what you're capable of. And sometimes it shows even more than what a client project could show. And I'll show some of those things in a second. So the first point is design work, again, you want to get hired for, and you do that through self-initiated projects. So if you're not getting hired for work that you want to do, and you're sitting around waiting for that client to come, the perfect project so that you can finally have that amazing project in your portfolio, do not do that. You can sit down right now and create your dream project and put it in your portfolio. And the more you do that, the more you're going to get hired for that type of work. And then another thing is add more deliverables to small projects. So I see a lot of people have just one single logo in their portfolio when that's all they got hired for, and that's totally fine. But if you want to put it in your portfolio and you think, well, I want to get hired to do complete brand systems, well, then design the whole entire brand system for that logo, design extra marketing collateral, design part of a website, design packaging, put it into context, because just having that logo, it's good and all, but if people don't see it within context, then it's just, it doesn't, we talk about raising the value of everything, that will raise the value of it. And so that is another thing to do if you don't really know what type of project that you should think up, or you're just not sure. Just take something that you've already done and explode it into other deliverables, or at least a context. So have it, if it's a storefront, put the logo on the storefront, put the logo on menus, put the logo where it would live in day-to-day dealings with that logo. So there are ways to expand on already existing projects. Or redesign them. Like there's some you could take from, if you went to school for this, then, and you really liked a certain project, again, build it out. And so that it's a more extended and covers more deliverables than just that single project that you had the assignment for in school. The other thing is collaborate. And this one was one of my favorites to do. So I'll show you some of the self-initiated projects I have in my own portfolio. And I've had some in my portfolio even from the beginning. So I had this concept project here was in my portfolio. I call them concept projects. And for some reason, that sounds way better than saying they're a fake project. This was also a business idea. So this one in particular, Cleankin, this was a concept project. And I get contacted by clients specifically saying, I love the Cleankin project. They don't care that it was or wasn't made. Thank you. And this was one of the first ones that got me into this momentum of creating portfolio pieces that really told the story of the entire brand at the different deliverables and the different touch points. And I was really studying the work on Behance that I was finding that was just absolutely beautiful. And I thought, okay, what are they doing differently than what I'm doing? And it was using patterns. It was using the color palette of the brand identity. It was telling that story and using a lot of messaging. And so then I went to this project and I did that. And I get contacted a lot because of this project. And it was a business idea I had too. I didn't actually start the business, but that really didn't matter. The other thing that I started too, so this is a business. This was a business that I started and I also branded. So any side business you have, any side thing that you came up with or idea, if you do brand identity, design the brand identity. If you do packaging, design the packaging for it. And so this one too is actually a business that I have, and I designed the case study because I did the branding for it. So you don't have to just sit on these concept projects. Like they can actually turn into real ideas and real businesses, which is kind of fun too.
Which end up making you money and getting you hired.
Exactly. And two, when you have another business on the side, you can actually learn more about how your own clients' businesses work. And so you're then raising your value again, because you get sales funnels, you get marketing, you understand business processes. There's so many things that you learn.
I just read the worst thing to happen to cats since cucumbers as the tagline for that project. And that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the one I said collaborate. So this was a project that I collaborated with someone that I met in Christo's Facebook group, the pro group. And we wanted to put our heads together and create a survival kit. And so we thought of a cat hater survival kit. We actually made the prototype. So this is a real package. We wrote stories, we have messaging in here, we have this whole kit. And this was everything is just a concept project. And this has landed us on, it should be featured. We got notified that we're going to be featured on the Die Line. We landed in a brand magazine. So we've won awards too, and we've been featured. So that again raises the perception, raises the value of your work. And this was literally just a concept project. This was not a paid client project, and that's okay.
I love the visuals. By the way, guys, I think it's probably quite tongue-in-cheek. I know we've got so many cat lovers.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, it's just a friendly joke, of course.
That's such an awesome project there.
Thank you. So that's that's the last point. So include self-initiated projects. And then I'm going to go back to this just so in case people missed the points.
Perfect. So we'll give you guys just a minute to write down these points if you haven't got them yet. And then Melinda, if you're able to stop sharing the screen in a minute, let's jump into some Q&A because we've got a bunch of questions that have come in.
Awesome. All right.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, you're welcome. Let me get back to you. Awesome.
Perfect. Okay. So, wow, loads of questions to get through. Elisa says, do you also have a presence on Behance? Is it Behance or Behance? I never know.
It's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, let's go.
I do. Yes.
Perfect.
And I would say I want to add something there too. I have a presence. I've gotten some requests, like client requests from there. Nothing ever turned out, but what has helped me on Behance is getting featured in magazines, in other things. People scour Behance to feature people on their blogs and their magazines. So that was something I've noticed that has worked for me to have that following of Behance.
Perfect. Rafaela also says, if you are redoing a logo design, how would you kind of show that process? So I guess just a redesign in general. That's quite different from just an original project from scratch.
To me, it's not horribly different. I think the fun part about the rebrands is that you can show what it used to be and show the transition from the old to the new. And that also is like showing your process. So I think that's the biggest difference between the two, and showing a lot of research. You have data to work with, which is wonderful. So I would also stick in, and this is more getting into like the actual case studies, but I would find out what their metrics are before that they're measuring and what they think the rebrand is going to do for them when you actually go through with the rebrand. And then from there, you're able to show, hey, this is where they were at with sales before their rebrand. Here's where they're at with sales now, if that's what they're trying to measure with this rebrand, or if it's client retention, or if it's turnover, that you want to get those stats. And so that's something that's so beautiful about doing rebrands, is that you have the before and you have the after to compare.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know if you know, Melinda, but when I freelanced, I mainly did website redesigns, tying brand work into that. And because I was the conversions guy, their revenue would always jump by 50 to 100% overnight. That makes for a pretty compelling case study. When you're like, my last 5 clients doubled their revenue. It's like, okay, sounds good. Sign me up.
Yes, exactly. You want to include that.
Dave asks, if you are a jack of all trades and you feel like you can cover all bases, is it better to have separate portfolios or sections within your portfolio? Are there pros and cons of doing either?
Chris will probably talk about this on Thursday, but I would say if you have a large body of work in each of those areas, split it off, because then it's just so incredibly overwhelming. If it's smaller, kind of like my first portfolio, I still got jobs with things and people were able to see I was a well-rounded creative, but I still, the more general you are, you're going to be watered down. So you're going to be getting lower paid projects and full-time jobs if that's what you're getting at. So ideally, you would split them off and talk to the specific audience that would be hiring you. So that would be my final answer on that one.
Yeah, I agree. And our friend Mike Janda, who's joining us right after this session, he often talks about having specific landing pages. Mm-hmm. So if you're not willing to specialize just yet, you can have very pertinent landing pages and then market and show that to your intended people.
Yes.
Z asks, what do you think is the most pivotal project you've had in your career where it really taught you a lot?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would actually say... every project has taught me so much, but when I showed the one about freelance, because that is my own business, that one taught me the most, because I actually learned about how to run a business. So because I was able to do everything from the design to working on the sales and marketing and business processes, that I learned so much there that I could then take over to my clients. So although it wasn't a client, I was the client with that one, but it wasn't an actual client hiring me. I learned the most from doing that, and I'm still in that and still working on it. So still learning.
Love it. Question from me, actually. So earlier you talked about basing your portfolio around knowing what the client wants. How do you figure that out, especially if you haven't got to the point of actually engaging with them? This is like a hypothetical potential client that you want to attract. How can you kind of guess what these people want, or is it just arbitrary?
Yeah, you can guess. I mean, it's the basics of being empathetic. If you just sat down and asked yourself, okay, if someone needed a new, in my case, brand identity, what would they want to see on a website? And just ask yourself that question. I know it seems very rudimentary and basic, but just ask yourself that question and the answers will start to surface. You'll at least make a hypothesis of what the potential could be. I could think, well, they'd probably want to read something of that I'm actually a brand identity designer. They'd want to see something or hear something about brands. So that's number one. They'd want to see that I actually do that. And so I want to show it. And how could I show it in the best way possible? So just ask yourself, try to put yourself in their shoes and just make a hypothesis. You might not be exactly 100% correct, but you're going to be a lot closer than if you were to arbitrarily just put things out, kind of like my first portfolio.
Although we've all been there. For sure. So we've got EPHS asks, I want to get into restaurant branding locally, but I have no experience with restaurants. I've been a professional designer of over 20 years. Should I pick a few actual restaurants and redesign their materials? Is that advisable, or should I make it up from a hypothetical restaurant? This is a great question, actually, because I've seen people do both. Like you, they can invent their own, what did you call it? Concept projects. And that works great. Equally, I've seen people do hypothetical redesigns of established brands. I had someone message me about a week ago where they had done the latter. They redesigned the brand, and the brand had got in touch and got really angry with them, being like, how dare you make it look like you've worked with us? So I'm keen to hear your answer, but I would say if you do that, have quite a clear disclaimer indicating that you didn't actually work for them. You're just doing it as like a passion project.
Yes, that's a very good disclaimer to have there. I would say, same thing. I'd be hesitant on redesigning unless you're actually in contact with that business and you're pitching this idea. And that's a whole other subject about pitching ideas. And so if you're wanting to get into that space, I would say first start out just making up your own. It's a lot easier, or reimagining, even take one. If it's really hard for you to think up your own idea for, let's say in that case, a restaurant, then take one that's already done, rename it, and completely redesign and think, how cool would it be if this restaurant was actually like this? And then it doesn't look like it's connected at all. And it just gives you a starting point. Someone who does this really well, and I don't know if they still do this as far as concept projects, but Farm Design. So if you go to farmdesign.net, they're one of my friends, and they're also really good at their case studies, and their portfolios are stellar. And they're ones that I look to for inspiration. When Aaron was trying to get more into the restaurant space, same thing. They were doing concept projects too. So they made up a restaurant, they made up the whole thing and the brand identity. They would go into restaurants and shoot the plate. So they made their own mock-ups and then photoshopped in the design. And then they got featured on the Die Line, and they got featured on Behance, and they got the momentum. And this was back in the day when it was easier to be found on those sites, because now it's getting kind of saturated. But they got that momentum, and they put out beautiful concept projects and beautiful work that they made up, and it's worked out really well for them. So if you're thinking about doing that, I highly suggest doing that. I think you might want to stray away from redesigning an actual business, because that might happen where they might get angry. So just use it as a jumping off point, rename it, and reimagine the whole entire thing.
That's smart. Also, from personal experience, there are some big wins to designing for restaurants, because I got paid for a local restaurant design back in the day, but then I got free meals for about 2 years afterwards. And so I'd be going there for date night looking like the Godfather, where it was like more food. And then the owner would come and be like, it's on the house.
That's wonderful.
Best benefit ever.
Yes. Yes.
Amy asks a great question here. Is there a minimum and maximum number of projects that you should show in your portfolio?
I would say, I don't want to say an absolute here, but I'll give you my suggestion would be 3 shows me enough breadth of knowledge and work. You could get away with 1, but you have to be very targeted in your marketing and what you're going after. And so I wouldn't suggest that. So the minimum that I would suggest is 3, because that at least gives a viewer a sense of, oh, you can repeat this process, because 3 is starting a pattern. And then I would say roughly no more than 12, because once you get higher than that, you're starting to water down what is shown. And I know there's exceptions in both places, but that's what I would suggest, is keep it between 3 and 12. So, ideally 6 and 8, and then and then you'll be good.
That's so weird. Literally, as I read the question, I thought 312. So
yeah.
Great minds.
Yeah.
Greeth asks, and this is quite a big question, really. What is the best advice for a freelancer in terms of landing more clients and getting out of the feast and famine cycle? Because that's such a common problem, right, for designers. So in your case specifically, Melinda, what were some breakthrough moments? I guess reframing your portfolio was probably one of those.
Yes. Yeah. Reframing the portfolio, that started a snowball effect for me, because that was something that was one of the first things that I worked on to change where I was at, because I was very frustrated with the clients I was getting and the feast and famine. And so the portfolio was the first thing that I started on that I needed to up level to then build everything else upon that. And so that gave me the confidence to then see, oh, this is way more valuable than what I was charging. And so to get out of the feast or famine mode, I mean, this is a huge topic to be talking about, but I would say figure out what your marketing strategy is and never stop marketing, because when you stop that, what happens is we pump out stuff on social media. We're pumping out great work. We're getting featured. We land a client. All we do is work on the client work and never pump out the stuff anymore, and never make connections because, oh, well, I'm stuck on client work. I can't do this anymore. That's not the way to go. You have to carve out. I've heard some people spend about 60% of their time on marketing and 40% on actually managing and doing the client work. So when you think about that, then they're always bringing in leads. You don't want to stop your marketing right when you get your client, because you're like, I'm good. I got my client. Now I have to focus all my energy on them. You want to pace yourself so that you can still put all of your time into, not all of your time, but most of your time into marketing and getting those leads and presenting your portfolio. So they say work on your business more than you work in your business. Mm-hmm. Always have that at the forefront of your mind, and do not forget all of the things like upping your portfolio. Don't wait to do that until you have no clients and you're starving for them. You want to build it into your everyday schedule. So it's building that marketing into your schedule, and it's working on your business at all times. So every week you should be doing something on your business, and that's marketing, if that's networking, if that's upping your portfolio, if it's learning and getting education. So always be working on that.
I love it. This is why I enjoy chatting with you, Melinda, because in my notepad right here in big letters, it says work on your business, not in it. And then you literally said the same thing like 30 seconds later. So I completely agree. And that is great advice. I think that should be one of your kind of top 3 to 5 takeaways from this chat. That is so huge. And it's easier said than done, right? Because when you're in the early days, you are so desperate for any work that you can get. You don't want to be saying no or not doing paid work to go and work on your business, because you feel like you need to be working on client stuff every second of every day. So it really can take some discipline and just a bit of faith that it's going to pay off, because it's an investment for the future. It won't give you immediate payoff, but it will in the future.
Yeah. And I wanted to add one thing right there too. Something that's been ringing in my ears for the past couple of days was something that I learned when I was first being mentored by Chris Do, is that I needed to say no to the clients who couldn't afford me to make room for the clients who could. And you just said about having faith that if you say no to something, that you know the better ones are going to come. And when you say no to those ones and you put a lot of time and effort, say like upping your portfolio, improving your portfolio, you'll start attracting those higher end clients that will pay so much more money, so that they're really paying you. When you think about it, you can then put your time and effort into the marketing because you're being paid so well by the clients that actually do hire you. So, but then you're getting better and better clients as you do that. So make room for those clients who can afford you, but it does take faith. Yeah. It does take that leap.
It's that lag time, isn't it? It's like batten down the hatches and just hope you're going to come through this transition.
Yes. Yes.
I love that you've done that though. Perfect example. Ratika asks, and we probably have time for like this and maybe one more question, because then we're of course going on with Michael Janda. I would say as well, actually, if you do want to learn more about breaking that feast and famine cycle, that's specifically what my talk's about on Thursday of this conference. So it's about how to make money or make more money as a creative. So I'm sure our team can link it up in the chat if you want to go register for that. But Ratika asks, how do you define a better client? Is it a good design scope of work? Is it a well-paying project? Is it great exposure? It's difficult to kind of define what a better client looks like. So what do you think, Melinda?
Yeah, it's different for everyone. So what I would do in anyone's case that's watching this, I would sit down and write out, what are you getting right now in clients? What do you love about them? What do you hate? And then I would make another list and put your dream client, and I would describe them, because it's going to be different for all of us. Because mine, it's a certain budget that they need to have. But it's not only that, it's the type of person too. I want to be able to get along well with their personalities. I want to share some same values and beliefs with them. I want to share aesthetic taste. I really love working with clients that have wonderful taste, that I don't have to convince them into anything, or that they get it. They just get design, they like it, but they're unable obviously to do it for themselves. So their taste level, I'd love clients like that. So it's going to be different for all of us. Some people are very, very particular about being on time. And there's just, that's a good thing for everyone. But there's things that we each have that might be more about us than other people. So, I might have, I want someone that has a good aesthetic and that already has good taste. Someone else might not care about that at all. So that's why I say make your own list and sit down and actually write out your dream client and what does that look like and what type of person, so that you can start forming your content around that, your portfolio, and you can start attracting people like that. Because a lot of my clients, when I switched my portfolio, I was getting, which I was happy about and I intended, I was getting a lot of fashion designers and fashion accessory designers because of my aesthetic. And I was very happy about that. So that's what I intended to do. So you might have a client that you want to get more in the tech space, or just whatever client you want, but list that out and make a persona of what is that person like? Where do they shop? What kind of books do they read? How do they talk? What are they looking at on a day-to-day basis? What attracts them? And form your marketing, form your portfolio all around trying to attract that person. So it's going to be different for everybody.
Again, I'm just nodding along here. Completely agree. Katerina just said in the comments, this is giving me so much clarity, guys. Yeah, that's spot on. And that audience persona work is so worthwhile. That's a perfect example of a way that you can work on your business and not just in it. And this applies whether you're like selling products at scale to a customer base, or you're dealing with clients one-on-one. We did the same thing at Design Cards, and it's working when your customers are literally telling you the stuff that you put in this persona. It's like they're speaking your own words back to you, and then they love about our company what we hoped they would, and they look and sound and care about the things we hoped they would, and that totally works with clients as well. Mm-hmm. It's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like the universe just starts giving you what you're actually looking for when you invest the time to lay that foundational framework.
Yeah. And you might get it wrong at at first. You might have to tweak stuff, but just throw it out, throw the line out, throw your best guess, talk to them how you think that it's going to hook. And if something's going wrong and you're not getting those types of clients or they're not connecting with you, ask yourself why. What's going on? You might even want to ask them why. You might want to do some research and actually have conversations with people. So same thing, it's an iterative process. Our business is an iterative process. Our marketing is, our portfolio is. And then if you get it wrong at first, it's okay. That it gives you, at least you learned something and what you need to change coming up.
Love it. Melinda, a huge thank you. Honestly, the comments are starting to blow up with just positivity and everyone loving the wisdom and value that you're sharing. So I really, really appreciate you joining us for Design Cuts Live 2019. I'm already getting your name on the list for 2020, to be honest, because you dropped a lot of knowledge bombs this session. But yeah, truly, we appreciate your time and you joining us today. And I hope everyone can blow up the comments right now with some support for Melinda. Where can people find you, Melinda? What's the best place?
They can find me at marksandmaker.com. I also hang out on Instagram under Melinda Livsey a lot. You can DM me there too. And then I am on Twitter, Melinda Livsey _. And then I'm on the Future YouTube channel a lot, record with them a lot. And then I also have a YouTube channel called Studio Grind with one of my friends.
Yep, you're a busy, busy person. I love it. Melinda, thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining us live. You guys have been fantastic in the comments. This is so much fun. We're only on session 2. I think we've got 12 lined up this week.
Oh my gosh.
So it's going to be really, really packed. Speaking of which, in about 8 minutes time, so I'm going to have to jump off and go set up with him in a sec. We have the man, the legend that is Michael Janda. He's jumping on to teach all about how to price yourself better as a creative. And I'm sure every single person live with us right now is going to benefit from that chat immensely. So if our team could pop a link to that in the chat, I highly recommend jumping over, registering for that talk. And like I say, in less than 10 minutes, we're going live to learn all about pricing and how to increase our prices. But Melinda, that was absolutely perfect. Thank you again.
Yes,
and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the event as well.
Oh, I will. I'm excited for it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Everyone go check out Melinda online as well. Her stuff is fantastic and she makes some great content. Perfect. Thank you, guys. I'll see you on the next session. So jump on over.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.